Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Mosky here again with another beer review for you. As you might have guessed by the change of background, I've returned from Germany. I'm back in Scotland after my 4-month research placement over there. I managed to do about 60 videos when I was there, which was quite cool, and I did bring some more German beers back with me to review, sort of, and mix it back up with the other ones. So you'll get a range of nationalities of beer these days. But for this one, my first beer review back in Scotland, we're going to do quite a popular brewery in Scotland. You'll no doubt have heard of these guys before, and we're going to take a look at one of their very popular beers, in fact. So we're going to go to Brewdog in the Aberdeenshire area and take a look at the Jackhammer beer. Now, of course, this beer was the runner-up in the 2012 prototype range that the brewery produced. Of course, every time they produce 3 or 4 different beers, and you get to vote for your favourite one. This guy and Coco Psycho came out in 2012, and they both were very, very close in the vote on this one. But this guy was actually very, very popular, and a lot of people requested it. So they actually decided to brew it along with, as an occasional beer, along with Coco Psycho, in fact. So quite cool actually that they've done that they listen to their fans and brew the beers that people really want. So as is usual with my beer reviews, I'll take you through a brief history of the brewery. I've not done a Brewdog review in quite a long time, so hopefully you'll want to stick with me for that. As always, the brewery website is in the video description there, along with the link to my other Brewdog beer reviews. I forget how many of these I've done now, but there's quite a few of them there, and there will be more to come. I've got a bit of a ridiculous Brewdog stockpile, so subscribe to the channel if you want to see a lot of Brewdog reviews. But anyway, to go on to the history of the brewery. Brewdog was founded in 2007 by James Watt and Martin Dickey, both of whom were only 24 years old at the time, and they started the brewery off with a £30,000 bank loan, in fact. But they opened their first brewery at the Keswick Industrial Estate in Fraserburgh in the northeast of Scotland. For those of you who don't know where it is, Scotland looks like a monster's head. Fraserburgh is right on the tip of the nose of the monster, if you like. So they used to sell their beer at the local markets and also out the back of their beat-up old van along with their chocolate Labrador, and that's of course who the brewery is named after, Brewdog. But Brewdog produce a number of occasional brews, and it includes stouts, pills, you know, any style you can think of, you name it, they've done it. But in 2008, just not long after they started, in fact, there was a big media storm over the Tokyo beer which the company produced, which is an 18.2% imperial stout. And many in the media, in fact, they did their usual and they branded the pair as irresponsible, you know, all this media storm over it. But they didn't care. They kept on brewing beer anyway, and they're actually very well known for these kind of strong beers, if you like. They've held the title of World's Strongest Beer on more than one occasions, and the strong brews have included the 32% Tactical Nuclear Penguin, the 41% Sink the Bismarck, and the 55% End of History, which was actually packaged with squirrels and stouts, if you like. So they got in trouble for the animal stoats, sorry. They got in trouble from the animal rights people for doing this, but again, they didn't care. They just kept brewing beer, so ideal for them. But these beers have been produced largely due to the ongoing sort of contest, if you like, with Schwarzbräu in Germany for the title of World's Strongest Beer, and I do have some of their beers that I will review for you in the future. I found them the other day. But in 2008, they also began exporting to Japan, Sweden and the USA, and they also began their kind of famous equity for punk shareholding options in 2009, and this has aided the company on a number of occasions to actually expand their operation, and they were so successful in 2009 that they actually managed to increase the company, the size of the company by 200% during a recession. Now in 2010, their first brew pub opened in Aberdeen in October, and this was followed by new bars in Edinburgh and then Glasgow in 2011, followed by one in Camden but in London, of course. They're one of the districts in London. But that year they also launched a second round of their shareholding, bringing in 5,000 new shareholders. And in 2012, their bar scene expanded again in England, with locations opening in Nottingham, Manchester, Newcastle, Bristol, Birmingham and Shoreditch in London, and they also opened up a new bar in Leeds as well. But the brewery also moved to their new facility in Ellon, which is closer to the city of Aberdeen. I think it's about 15-20 miles north of Aberdeen, in fact, and the Fraserburgh facility at this point remained as a beer lab for their experimental brews, and they also brewed their high percentage stuff there for quite a while, in fact. But they're the largest independently owned brewery in Scotland, and they also produce 120,000 bottles of beer per month for export all across the world, and this includes Europe, the Far East, Australia and North America. You can get these beers as far and wide as New Zealand, and I've seen them in Estonia and things now as well. On to the more recent events of the brewery. They're also planning to open up some new international locations for their brew pubs. This includes Sao Paulo in Brazil, Tokyo, Berlin, Rome and Florence have all been confirmed, and the company apparently were also looking into sites in Brussels, Paris, Barcelona and a number of US states as well. And very recently they've also hired Bates, a guy from South Carolina in the USA, a former pig butcher apparently, and he's going to create some new dishes for them to serve in their brew pubs. And the brewery have actually also launched their first bottle shop, called Brewdog in London. And they actually recently, very recently in fact, bidded farewell to their original brewery in Fraserburgh, and they've moved all of their production to the brand new Ellon facility. I really need to go and visit it. There's a visitor centre at the brewery that you can go and visit, and when my American friend who loves Brewdog, Dave, when he comes to Scotland, that's when I'm going to go and experience that with him. But in they're actually just recently opened up their new bars in Roppongi in Japan and also in Sao Paulo, and they're planning to open new bars in Dundee in Scotland, Cardiff in Wales, Liverpool in England, and also a new one in Gothenburg in Sweden. So that's your brief history of the Brewdog Brewery there. We'll just get on with the tasting here. I'll bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the label of this guy. This one is a 7.2% Indian Pale Ale. Apparently it uses Centennial and Columbus hops, and it's also dry hopped with Citra and Amarillo and Simcoe, and it's extra pale spring blended malts that they use for this guy. As is usual, I'll just read the blog for you. It says, "This IPA is bitter, very bitter. Don't say we didn't warn you. Press the button, go ahead. Your mama's not coming this time. Don't slow down now, hammer it. Taste the hops and live the dream. Learn to speak beer. Love fruit and never forget. You come from a long line of truth seekers, dreamers and warriors. The outlaw elite. Ride towards anarchy and caramel craziness. Let the devastatingly bitter finish rip drill straight through your taste buds. Put a bullet in the head of mediocrity. Raise hell and revel in craft beery awesomeness." So that's pretty cool. My English is getting a little bit weird having been in Germany for so long, but hopefully you didn't notice that. I'll bring up the camera, let you see the label. It's the standard Brewdog label, a nice sort of foresty lime green on this one here. As you can see, the standard Brewdog labels, they just change the colours and stuff for them all the time, but they do have some kind of random ones as well. You can see it's the standard white with blue Brewdog on this, the bottle cap on this guy. But let's get it open and get on with the tasting here. As I mentioned, a 7.2% India Pale Ale, or American style Pale Ale. It says on the bottle it's actually a West Coast IPA, so an American Pale Ale I guess. But let's get it open and get on with the tasting. As you can see, a nice sort of smoky opening here, and let's get it out into the glass. Doesn't smell too strong in fact, actually, which is kind of unusual for some of Brewdog's beers, but that said, I haven't had one in quite a long time, which is disappointing. As you can see, it's actually I can smell it now in fact that it's settled a little bit. You've got just under a finger of head, a nice frothy bumpy head. It's quite hazy. If I put my fingers behind it, there's a lot of haze, a good bit of sedimentation in there in fact. That's probably because I've stored it for a little while, but it should be good nonetheless. But you can see it's a nice hazy kind of bright orangey amber colour in fact. Really really nice looking beer, I would say. In terms of the aroma with this guy, very very fruity. I love the smell of these Brewdog beers. Something that I've really missed is the smell of these beautiful American pale ales that you can get in Scotland, that you just don't get them in Germany in fact. Sorry, my computer's being a little bit funny here, but yeah, a lot of kind of piney citric fruits in there if you like. Oranges, lemons, a nice underlying sharp piney resin to it. Not smelt a beer like this in a long time, so I'm really excited about this. A little kid at Christmas, you know. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of citricy and piney fruits, as you would expect with American Pale Ale. You're getting some nice grapefruit and pineapple in there as well. It's a nice big sort of fruit bowl blend if you like. A really really nice smelling beer. But definitely some piney resin underlying there, and you've got a nice mix of kind of you can smell the citra hop in it. In fact, I know what this. I'm quite good at telling the citra hop, and like you say, it's in the ingredients. You can smell that. That's one of the most prominent ingredients. But yeah, a good mix of the sort of grapefruity smell and some nice kind of citric lemons and oranges in there as well. But there's a nice piney resin. It all blends together really well. You're getting that typical sort of fruity, hoppy character that you're used to with Brewdog beers. But without further ado, let's get on to the tasting and see how we get on. Yeah, typical Brewdog beer. I've tried this guy before in fact, and I really liked it at the time. But it's that typical kind of Brewdog hot blast that they're very well known for. But yeah, it's quite, I would say it's actually quite nice and wet at the beginning. It comes in with just a nice little bit of an oily mouthfeel, and then you're getting that citra bitterness kind of coming in and attacking the tongue quite nicely. But yeah, you're getting a lot of kind of citrusy fruit flavours in there, oranges and lemons, but the pine resin is very, very notable in this one in my opinion. That's the main thing that's kind of underlying all the way through this beer. There's just a little hint of kind of underlying kind of caramel sweetness to the malt character. The malt character is very, very faint in this. You have to... It really is on the aftertaste that you're getting it. You can just feel it's there, but it is very, very subtle. Yeah, there is definitely just a little bit of kind of caramel sweetness just right on the back in the middle of the tongue. There is definitely just a little bit of sort of brown sugary caramel sweetness in there. But your main element to this beer, your main flavour of this one really is the kind of citricy, piney resins. The grapefruit isn't all that prominent in my opinion. It's mainly, I think with this guy you're really getting the kind of dry hop, the dry citra hop character in this guy. The grapefruit flavour, I think, is kind of coming out just a little bit and mixing well with a sort of caramel bread base at the end, but it really is, I think it definitely is the sort of citricy, piney resins that are the most prominent flavour in this one. They're sitting kind of right on the front, on the edges of the tongue, but you're getting a nice, just a nice little blend of the grapefruit and caramel malt in at the back there. It's just a little, the caramel malt I think is very, very subtle. It might not even be caramel malt, but I think it has just a little hint of that sweetness there. It's a very hop forward beer, and that's what you would expect from a West Coast Pale Ale, of course. But yeah, the mouthfeel of this guy, it's mid-bodied, moderate carbonation. It's not too forward with the carbonation, which might actually suit the sort of hoppy bitterness quite well, but it's very, very well balanced in fact. It's a little bit dry, it's got a nice little bit of dry character to it which kind of complements, the dry character actually really, really suits the sort of hoppy bitter bite that this beer has. I think they've got the mouthfeel of this one pretty much spot on. It's got quite a nice wet and oily mouthfeel to it as well, and it's the flavour, like I say, is very, very well balanced. I think they've got this beer pretty much bang on, if you like. There's no alcohol warmth to it at all, I think. It doesn't, for a 7.2%, it is a little bit heavy on the sort of IPA side of things. It's almost as if this beer is kind of a somewhat halfway mark between the punk IPA and the hardcore IPA, but it is quite a hell of a lot more bitter than the it's a hell of a lot more bitter than the punk IPA, and it doesn't quite have the more malty character of the hardcore IPA, but it's a beautiful beer within its own right, and it almost does sort of, like I say, in a way it is a sort of halfway mark between these two beers, but it's very unique and it's on its own. So overall, it's a very bitter, fruity and hoppy IPA, a really, really beautiful beer. And like I say, it maybe perhaps kind of hits the mark somewhere between the hardcore and the punk IPA, but very, very beautiful and very unique in fact. And I'm really glad that they actually listened to their fans in this regard, and brought out the beer that was the second most popular, because apparently they were getting loads of requests in the brew pubs for this, and that was why they decided to do it. And I was in the supermarket the other day, the first time since I've been home, and it was available in my local Tesco, which I was quite surprised about. So they're probably actually producing this one on quite a big scale these days if they're selling it in Tesco in fact. But that's besides the point. It's a really, really beautiful beer, so give this guy a try if you get the chance. If you've tried this one yourself, let me know in the comment section your own thoughts on it. Like I say, I think this guy is a really kind of citric, piney, resiny forward IPA. Really, really beautiful beer. Just some really nice kind of sort of grapefruit and just a little hint of caramel malt in there. Really well balanced flavour. One of the a really beautiful beer from Brewdog. One of their better ones, in fact. But that's quite hard to actually choose within the whole range of these beers that they've got now. But anyway, I hope you found this beer review informative. Like I say, let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this beer. Always interesting to hear those. I hope you've enjoyed this Brewdog beer review. There's many more of them to come. Please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. As I say, I'm back in Scotland now, so my beer reviews will be coming from a few more different countries now. It was all German beer reviews for the last 60 or so videos. So I hope you've enjoyed this one, and I will catch you soon with another beer review. Cheers.